Thank you for that beautiful, beautiful song and this beautiful opening. So let's take that into our time of meditation. We feel ourselves lifted in this bounty of love, in this expression of giving an open hearted awakening. We allow ourselves to feel this lifting, this transcendent experience of the music, of the moment. And we allow ourselves to open our hearts and our minds to be met by a higher truth, to be received in a higher way. I invite you to take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth, to relax the body and connect with our shared humanity, our shared human experience, and yet open and receptive to a higher mind. And as we open to this higher mind, we allow ourselves to be lifted in thought and in experience. We allow ourselves to feel that sense of gratitude and appreciation. Really feel it in our hearts and let it fill and permeate our sense of being. And we sit in this beautiful silence, ready to receive what is ours to receive with a grateful and thankful heart. And we rest for a moment in this space. And we say thank you. And so it is. So good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you again. Those of you who are new here to Unity Church of Brownsville, I welcome you. I was you one day, once. I walked in through the doors. This was my very first time. And I had an experience. And the rest, as they say, is history. So today's talk is about lifting up our thoughts in transcendence. So Eckhart Tolle said, make sure that consciousness flows into what you do. Keep one foot in the world and one foot in the transcendence. This is the dance. We could call this the dance of creation. What are we creating? We're creating our own life experience. So the definition of transcendence, and that's like a big word, you know, transcendence feels like a big word. But if we define it as the existence or experience beyond the normal or physical level. So we are when we transcend, we're moving beyond what is physical. And some may even call this awakening. So awakening to what? To what Jesus, our way shower, taught, that the kingdom is at hand. So some of us spend all of our time in the normal physical world, the world of sense consciousness, as Charles Fillmore described it. You know, it's the day-to-day, everything, the goings on. And we may keep ourselves in separation from our true divine nature because we may believe that what's real is what's currently outpictured in our experience. I know that when I walked into a Unity church, that was one of the ideas that was transcended for me. Einstein said, we can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. So we already know we created all of this. Some of us don't want to take a lot of responsibility for that, but that's part of our path. Our ability to see where is it that we created our life experience. The truth is, whatever is going on right now in your life and circumstances is the result and the record of the consciousness that you and the collective around you have been holding. If it's not what you'd like to experience, you and I and all of us have an opportunity to transcend it. Did you ever think that you could choose transcendence? It takes your powers of imagination and faith. So some of the ways that people experience transcendence or go beyond what we would consider a normal experience or existence include things like being out in nature. So hence the backdrop. This is actually a photo of a place where I went camping. You all know that I do weekend camping. I'm planning to do 2 more camping trips this coming month. So I'm excited about being able to transcend my everyday experience by getting out into nature. So that's one way that we can transcend our everyday experience. Listening to music is another beautiful way. And that's why we begin all our services here at Unity Church of Brownsville with joy songs. Music can help us transcend even the most mundane things. But don't you feel that when you come into Unity Church to a service and the beautiful songs that are selected are to lift up your hearts? And now some of us will just sing them, da, 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 da. We don't even let the songs lift up our hearts. But if we allow ourselves to be lifted, the songs can lift our hearts. I know for me, I like to use music to help me transcend chores I have to do around the house. So if I have music going on, somehow the chores aren't so bad. Somehow I'm able to lift myself for the moment to get the job done. Doing something creative is always uplifting for me. For some people who don't do this kind of stuff very much, it can really be uplifting to go and try and do a little craft or go and do some little something with your hands, or even be creative in the garden. So those are ways that you can transcend your experience and lift up your thoughts. Reading poetry is another beautiful way to lift up your thoughts and be transcendent. Even reading of the booklet, like the Daily Word. I know for me, this was a very important first practice that I did very consistently in my life in order to begin to transcend some of the thinking that had created some of the experiences that I was having. And what I would do is I would pick one word and not just change it every day, but really, really spend a lot of time with one word. And I would put them in these little booklets. These are this little kind of photo booklets. And I would pick words around that theme because I really wanted to get into this new thought to take seed in my mind and in my consciousness. And so I would spend a lot of time in this, in the word, in the daily word. Another way, of course, is to participate in some sort of spiritual practice or religion. And we do that by coming here together, and we gather together and put these practices together to transcend our everyday life. And we learn new things like meditation. What does that mean to quiet the mind? What does that mean to allow ourselves to transcend our emotional state? And we begin to experience this and practice this. Being in love, that can be a pretty transcending experience. Maybe perhaps you remember when you first time really fell in love and you realize, wow, this is different. This is not how I felt before. Or playing with a pet can be very, very transcending. Just taking the time to appreciate beauty around you can also lift up your hearts. So these are all kinds of very simple ways to transcend the experience, and they're all very universal. So that's pretty easy. If you're in the need for transcendence, pick one of these and put it into practice for yourself right away. If unity is one thing, it's practical. I can say that. So there's a practical thought. Now, some experiences can really change you, some transcendent experiences. They're not always positive in the light of when we're having them. They could be very challenging while we're having them. But if we maintain this transcendent idea that this is for a purpose, then we can get through this challenging experience and still feel transcended and uplifted by what we learned and what we experienced through it. Having a child could be a very transcendent experience, not just the actual birth, but the whole change in your life once that child comes into your world. Losing a loved one can also be a transcendent experience because something in you changes and the world that you know has changed. Some things are lost and some things are gained. And only we get to choose how it's going to transcend us. Coming to unity and learning the spiritual principles, for me, was a transcendent experience. Perhaps for you too. I had just experienced a lot of loss. I had 2 cousins and my mom had passed. I was wondering about the state of my marriage. And I knew that something big had changed in my life. Whether or not that was going to be uplifting and positive for me, I didn't know. I really didn't. But what happened is I drove by that street there, and I saw a sign that said Future Home of Unity Church of Brownsville. And I thought, oh, I'm going to come to that once they build it. So the walls went up, boom, 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 boom. And I saw the sign and I called the number and I wanted to come in because my mother was the one who introduced me to Unity. She was a follower of the prayer Silent Unity. She used to call Silent Unity for everything. And she would tell me, have you called Silent Unity? Have you called Silent Unity? So it was her thing. And then she sent me the little daily word booklet when I was in college. So I was reading that. That's the first time I was introduced to it. And then we had wonderful conversations about these concepts because she was raised very fundamentally Christian. And she was in this process of transcendence in her own consciousness. And somehow, some way, daily word and silent unity and our conversations helped to move her. And it also opened up and transcended our relationship. We became able to talk about things that I know that she didn't necessarily have that level of communication with my siblings. So it really did transcend our relationship, just the knowing of what she knew and she experienced about unity. And when I walked into the door, my intention was just to honor her. I wanted to go to the church that she probably would have enjoyed going to if she had known it existed. And I wanted to do something to honor her. So I had a uplifting idea of what I wanted to do. And I really believe that was my higher spirit and her higher spirit leading me forward. So I walked into those doors and I started learning things that continue today to transcend me. So sometimes it may seem that transcendent experiences just happen to us. And that can certainly be the case. But it's because we let go of what we're expecting and what we thought should be, even momentarily. And we are moved beyond the usual. And we experience this behold, I make all things new. The entire New Thought movement was based on this experience in transcendence. Myrtle Fillmore used it to transcend her physical limitations. They created the Daily Word publication to focus on one thought until it takes hold in consciousness, and that they knew would be transcendent. So transcendent is just beyond that common or habitual way of thinking or seeing things, a renewing of the mind. So Romans 12:12 says, be ye transformed by the renewing of the mind. So it's our job to be doing the renewing of the mind in order to receive the gift of transcendence. So the principles themselves can provide an avenue or experience for transcendence, which is why unity is a welcoming place for us to transcend our thoughts and our beliefs. So one of the thoughts, so let's start at the bottom with number 5. And that is that through our thoughts and our words and our actions, we live the truth that we know. Well, that's happening now, even if what's happening isn't very good. We are all living the truth that we know through our thoughts, our words, and our actions. That's already happening. The question is, are we liking that? Is that serving us? Is that our highest expression? So then we go to principle number 4. He says, through prayer and meditation, we align our hearts and minds with God, and we use our tools of denials and affirmations to create higher thoughts. So, those thoughts are going to come in. We use denial and we say, well, you know what? We're going to say no to that thought. And we're going to allow for another thought. And we're going to affirm another thought. So we're already doing that. But sometimes the quality of those thoughts are not, creating as we want to create. So prayer and meditation, you could be doing that when you're watching the news. You're meditating and praying and focusing on everything that's wrong in the world. And then those are the thoughts that are filling us. And that's from where we are creating. So then we move into principle number 3, which says that we co-create with our Creator. So we are creating through our thoughts that we hold in mind. To me, that was the biggest game changer. That principle alone made me start examining my thoughts, examining my habitual patterns, and looking at what is being outpictured in my life. If I am a co-creator with my Creator, then I have something I can do. And the first thing I had to change is my belief about others. Now, sometimes the real job is to transcend our beliefs about ourselves. Maybe we were taught, maybe we were given a false teaching that there was something wrong with us. So unity principle number 2 says that the essence is of God. Therefore, we are all inherently good. Now, there's nothing excluded in the word we. We means everyone and everything. That takes a lot of transcendence to open in consciousness. But it is the truth. If I'm not seeing it, then that's my work to do. And I can use prayer and meditation to help my mind and heart open to the higher truth and to be allowed to receive it. That's my free will. And I choose to see the higher truth. And then principle number 1 says there's only one presence and one power active in the universe and in my life, God the good. That is a very transcendent experience. There's only one presence and one power. And this is the one my mom and I used to debate a lot because she was a worry. So, and she was taught, she was taught in separation. She was taught in there's good and there's bad, there's good and there's evil, and she struggled a lot with this concept. And what it did for her is that she experienced it in the form of worry. I say she had a PhD in worry. She was really, really good at it. And again, that's the power of her imagination to create all the possible scenarios of everything that could go wrong, and then finding the evidence to prove it. So I would sit with her and I would say, Mom, you believe in one power and one presence, in God. Yes. So how could anything else be more powerful than that? It was only the power that maybe she was giving to it with her thoughts and her beliefs. And that happens to all of us. For me, I was just kind of trying to help my mom kind of talk her off the ledge. But it really made me think about the same thing, made me go a little deeper to try to say, well, what do I believe? Do I believe that there's only one power, one presence? I mean, truly, truly, truly? Or am I just saying that and hoping that that's true? So our principles really do help us do our part in order to prepare our way to be lifted in transcendence. Now, transcendence is not escapism or spiritual bypass. We each came here to have a human experience, and each challenge is on the agreed upon lesson plan. So when we see it come before us, we see it as a challenge, something that we're here to learn to express more of who we truly are. And we each have basic human needs, yes, physical, safety, belonging, and self-esteem needs, but these can also be included and transcended when we align and awaken to express fully with our divine nature. So our way shower brother Jesus taught to seek ye first the kingdom, and all else will be given to you. That's the state of transcendence, an uplifted state of consciousness. We seek that first to lift up our hearts, to lift up our thoughts, to lift up our expectations. That's our part, to hold that in consciousness and in truth and in belief. And this is what helps us transcend what we're experiencing or what we may be seeing as our picture. So how do we transcend something like fear? Everybody's experienced fear. How do we transcend fear? With faith. If we have faith, there's no fear. Or we could have fear, but we could transcend it and lift it with faith. How do we transcend lack? And the ideas of lack and the consciousness of lack? Well, in Unity, we teach it's gratitude. It's gratitude. How do we transcend confusion? I don't know what's going on in the world. I don't know what's happening. And we're in this state of confusion. We transcend confusion with trust and knowing. How do we transcend hate? Well, first, we recognize that it's in us too. And we need to love ourselves. So we transcend hate with love. But if it's coming out of us, then it's in us. So we need to love us, love ourselves, find a way to align with the higher truth of who you are. So I would like to also just share a little bit from two of these daily words, just little parts, because there's the reading of the daily word, and then there's the reading of the daily word. And the daily word can be a beautiful vehicle for transcendence of your thoughts and your beliefs. But you have to give it a chance to take hold in your consciousness. And that's what we do with our practice of prayer and meditation. So you pray and meditate on these. So I don't read the daily word the way I used to read the daily word. But I still read the daily word. So this one was, the word was oneness, this idea and concept of oneness. And the affirmation was, I am one with God. You have to sit with that long enough for it to take hold in truth, because as soon as you sit with it for a little while, that part of you that is your son's consciousness, that human side of us, wants to deny it immediately. And it'll come up. And guess what? That's good. Because that's that wrestling with that idea. And then you could notice that that's what you're doing. You're wrestling with the idea. And then you can ask it, why am I wrestling with this idea? And then you allow it to be transcended for you. Feeling at one with God begins with deep faith in God's presence and power in my life and in the universe. Unity principle number 1. Maybe that's the one you need to spend time with in order to feel that lifting and transcendence. This faith means I feel God as close as my heartbeat and as near as my next breath. Do I? Can I? Is this even possible? Whether I'm in nature, perhaps walking through a forest or strolling along the seashore or on a bustling city street, I sense the presence of God everywhere. If we just wait for it, it will appear. It will show up. You may feel it the way I feel it many times. I just feel it like grace, like I get lifted up. That's the transcendent experience. All I have to do is be open and ready for it. Be willing. Oneness with God means being at peace with life, however it shows up. Our situation, whatever it is, whatever your situation is right now, it will pass. Everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then there's another one or something else. That is the flow of life. And when we navigate this life with the power that we have in transcendence, just even understanding that this is possible, then we are beginning our process. And we are working with our Creator to create a new experience, not just for us, but for everyone in a collective. So this one is awaken. I awaken to the awesome power of God within and all around me. You might look around and say, I don't see it. Or I see God angry, or I see however you're interpreting what you're seeing. But that's us seeing from that sense consciousness, from that limited perspective, from the place from which we created the problems. So transcendence requires us to see it from a new perspective, from a higher perspective. And we can use our principles. And it says, not merely awake, awakened. That's as deep as our knowing. In this place of knowing. So this is the time of our collective transcendence. We are all participating in the dance of creation. What do you choose to transcend? And let that inspire you in your actions.